Hello, welcome to Wellbeing, Dementia Derailed. We've had a request for a video, we've pulled it from the archives, but I wanted to preface that video with an added emphasis on state. In terms of dementia, yes, new learning is how we promote neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. In other words, the brain has a built-in mechanism to protect us from neurodegenerative disease. However, whilst new learning is the way to go and not trying to recall past memories, a huge factor is your state. If you live in chronic stress, if you spend a lot of time in stressed states or depressed states, these are not your natural states. Our natural state is parasympathetic state. So if you spend a lot of time in sympathetic state, cortisol is incredibly corrosive to certain structures within the brain that actually are responsible for neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. Cortisol undermines our ability to build our brain, to have a better brain. And it's irrelevant, age is irrelevant to that. You can build a better brain at any age. You can build like more networks and neurons at any age within the brain. However, you have to look to your state. So before learning, that is a key, learning and movement, but before that, first look to your state. So learn to regulate your mental and emotional state. State always begins in the thought feeling world. Our mental and emotional state is key, and we want to learn how to shift state. If we're spending a lot of time in stressed states or depressed states, we want to learn how to regulate those states and shift into our more natural parasympathetic state. So thank you for that, and we'll see you.
Let's have a look at a simplified version of a neuron. This is the cell body called the soma, and that's the site of neurotransmitter production, as in your brain chemicals serotonin and dopamine, which are involved in transmitting messages between nerve cells, I should say. We have dendrites which receive the information, and we have axons. So this cell has an axon here, this cell has an axon here, which transmit the information. When we learn things, the messages travel from one neuron to another down the axon. And they travel over and over, and eventually the brain starts to create connections or pathways between the neurons so that the things that you are learning become easier and you can do them better and better. So if you're thinking in terms of movement, you might start off being a little bit awkward, hula hooping or practicing yoga postures, but as the circuits become a little bit more entrained, then movement will become much more precise. Now, the thing about brain cells, neurons cannot divide and regenerate like other cells. So they can change in terms of their behaviour, but they can't regenerate. However, new neurons can grow. They're born as blank stem cells in a part of the brain called the hippocampus. But the stem cell has to go through a development process to become a functioning neuron that is part of this network. And how does that happen? Well, you have to give the new stem cell something to do in order for it to survive. So if you don't use it, you lose it. And for it to actually become part of this system, it has to fire its axon. So you've got to give it some new learning for it to fire its axon and become part of the whole network. So aging and degenerative diseases are all a matter of cells becoming damaged and dying. But the brain has a built-in countermeasure. Neurogenesis, the growth of new brain cells. But our job is to actually give them a mission so that they do become part of a functioning network. I'll say a little bit more about this in the written post.